You all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I will go ahead and present. Alrighty.
All right, thanks. All right, well, thank you everyone who is joining us for this workshop. So this is our first official Scout class workshop for our new MATE Mid-South Regional ROV competition. That is a mouthful. You want to head over to the next slide? I'm going to cover the agenda. Okay, so today I really want to focus on covering and highlighting the Scout competition manual. We'll kind of talk about all of these segments. So being an entrepreneur, vehicle design and build, the need and the mission test that you're facing, engineering and communication, which are going to be the deliverables that you'll turn in and at the end of May. And then we'll talk about the competition rules and safety because that's super important. And then I want to cover teacher milestones, which will be more for you. And then kit distribution, which I'm sure y'all are dying to know about. And then you will get a copy of this presentation. It'll also be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel. We have an ambassador. Her name is Elsie. She is currently working on the website. So she should have that done this weekend and it should be up and running by Monday. So STEM Hub website, and then there will just be a tab for our MATE competition. So all of our important information will be on there. And then we have links throughout this presentation, so they will all be clickable and you'll be able to access all of the information you need that we talk about. So you want to move on? Oh, also, my name is Sharon. I'm so sorry. We have a regional team, so you'll be hearing from all of us throughout this presentation. So if you ever have questions, you can reach out to us or Dr. Ivy, and she'll forward your questions and emails to us. So, all right, now we can go.
Well, this is where I'm going to come in. Thank you so much for the introduction, Sharon. What a great job. Hi, my name is Tylen Barr, and I'm going to talk about just the students themselves being entrepreneurs. And that's one key thing when it comes to MATE that I think is a little bit different than other competitions out here, because these kids have to really have the skills to make up their own business. And let's talk about those skills first at hand. Actually understanding the actual operation at hand. And that's very, very important to think about as well. And actually taking different initiative and also being a team player, also being a critical thinker, also having those actual knowledge, those techniques and skills to be innovative enough on the team. But I want to dive into something else as well that plays a role into being an entrepreneur, is the actual individuality of those individual students. Because each student will have their own skill set. It's very, very important to place the students where their skills are going to soar. Now, of course, you want the students to experience all different forms of skill set and entrepreneurship, but it's very, very important to have students, you know, if you have a student that likes to do more research, that's awesome to put them into research and development. You have a student that wants to be the leader, let's make that student the CEO, or any other forms of those responsibilities. Those are very important. Of course, they're going to learn from each other and they're going to grow as a team. That's what we want from them, but definitely make sure you put them in the roles that will make them successful. Easy way of doing that, just talking to the students. See what their interests are. Just say, okay, what are you interested in? And these are specific ways to navigate what role to put them in so they can be successful as a team. And we're going to also talk about this as well. We talked about entrepreneurship. We talk about MATE as being actually the client. We are the client for MATE, the global community itself. So the students will have to do a request for proposal. And what is that? So something of this, and we're going to dive into it a little bit later on, but just to give you a brief summary of it, is basically something they're proposing to these different businesses really to MATE, to actually bid on their product. Think of it more like a Shark Tank. It kind of fits also with the underwater theme. This actual Shark Tank experience, the kids are coming in, they're pitching their idea to the actual mate and for us to see if it will fit along within guidelines. And this is really, really important to note as well. You want to make sure the students articulate their idea and their approach for their actual presentation, whatever they present or projects. Because even if they have a great idea, and it can be a great idea that their approach is great to meet all of mate's tasks and requirements, if they cannot communicate that well, it might fall short and it won't be as successful. And that's what you want the kids to do. You want them to succeed in this process. So it's very, very important going along with this process that you talk about to the kids, how to communicate and actually make their communication fun. If they, want to do something fun and exciting, a different approach to communicating, that's always open as well. So move on to the next slide for me, Thais, please. Thank you. Also, too, these are things to think about as well when they're doing their being an entrepreneur. They have to think about, the company name. We also talk about roles, the different roles they can do. Talk about fundraising, marketing. All these different things are very, very important in running a business. So that's another thing I would suggest to do is maybe doing like a task list of like, what's your goals, your short-term and long-term goals. That's very important in a corporation to do. You want to have that so the kids will stay on task. Let me tell you something. Sometimes they have a lot of fun. Kids have fun. We want them to have fun, but they'll start doing their own thing, and that's great. However, you want to make sure that they're being on task so they can be successful in the end, so they can feel confident about anything they present to us to make. And that's all I have to say on my slides. I'm going to pass it over to our wonderful ambassador, Terry.
Hello, that was wonderful, Tylen. I loved it. I will be going over vehicle design and build. My name is Terry Ross, just to restate that. And Thais, will you please go to the next slide? So for vehicle design and build, please be sure to follow the competition manual. The RFP has additional information about this. Unsafe vehicles will be prohibited from competing. So I will get into that in a little lower. So 2021 size restrictions. Smaller, lighter vehicles be given special consideration. Design your vehicle for the environment it will be used for, and vehicles be measured/weighed before each demonstration. Measuring rings. 2 rings, 48 centimeters and 60 centimeters in diameter. Control system and 1 meter of tether can be outside rings. The tether you will see on the next slide in this big picture. Rings placed over 2 largest dimensions of ROV, and for the pointing system, 48 centimeters will get 10 points and 60 centimeters will get 5 points. Thais, we go to the next slide. Thank you. So as you can see, this red rope right here, that is the tether system. For mechanical and physical, vehicles must be able to operate in pools up to 13 feet deep. Team must be able to carry vehicle by hand. This goes back to being smaller and how you get special consideration, but also you can't be like rolling around the ROV while you're there. Propellers must be enclosed inside the ROV frame, and voltage cannot exceed the nominal 12 volts. All electrical components must be waterproof, so please make sure of that. That's also into safety. And cameras are not required in Scout class. Now, I'm not sure if we're still mentioning this, but we possibly talked about high schoolers being able to use the cameras to distinguish them from the middle school and elementary. And I'm sure Sharon or Jake will discuss that later.
Thank you, Terry. So now I will go into the need and mission tasks for MATE. So as you all heard from Tylen, MATE always puts out an RFP or a request for proposal, which is basically how they tell the students or the entrepreneurs what the needs are. And these are the needs that they want the students or the entrepreneurs to find solutions to. So this year's theme is Excite, Educate, Empower Students Engineering Solutions to Global Problems. And MATE has identified 3 big problems that they want students to work on. The first is the ubiquitous problem of plastic pollution. So these tasks will involve remediation of plastics clogging our rivers, lakes, waterways, and oceans, as well as the sea bin, which is basically a large floating garbage can that we put in the middle of a body of water. The second need is the catastrophic impact of climate change on coral reefs. These tasks are going to involve remediation of bleached and dead coral reefs, as well as predatorial threats on coral reefs, such as sea stars. and research from animals that we can find in coral reefs. The third need is maintaining healthy waterways, part 2, Delaware River and Bay. The reason this is part 2 is because part 1 was presented in past mission. Sorry, did anybody have questions?
All right, I'm just making the deposit.
Okay, I'll keep going. And so this third task is, or the third need is going to have tasks involving the remediation of contaminants in our waterways, as well as assisting animals that were affected by the dams, such as mussels and eels. All right, so now I'm just going to go over a brief overview of the different missions within the tasks. I'm going to show a video and kind of explain what's going on in the tasks underwater. But first, I'll tell you what the different missions are. So within the first task, we have 2 missions. One is the sea bin, which involves cleaning up our ocean 1 marina at a time. The second mission is remediation, which is just removing pollution from the bottom of the pool. The second task has 4 missions. The first one is flying a transect blind over a coral reef. The second one is propagating coral reefs onto new reefs. The third one is culling an outbreak of crown of thorn sea stars, which is this predator that we were talking about. And the fourth mission is collecting samples of sponge species for pharmaceutical research. The third task has 3 missions. The first one is retrieving sediment sample from the inside of a drain pipe to analyze for contaminants. The second one is estimating the number of mussels in a mussel bed. And the third one is eel restoration. So now I'm going to share with you all this YouTube video. Okay. Do you all see it yet? No.
No, I see your face. Everyone's face.
Okay, is it there now?
Yes.
Okay, so if I go through these a little bit quickly, don't worry, you will have access to this after we are done presenting, so you can go through it as many times as you need. But we will go ahead and get started. And you only see the YouTube video, correct?
Yeah, the page, yeah.
All right. So in the first task, we have 2 different missions, the sea bin mission and the remediation mission. So for the sea bin, we are disconnecting an old power connector to a recently installed sea bin. We are removing a sea bin mesh catch bag that has debris in it. Now we are replacing it with a new catch bag that doesn't have any debris in it, and we are reconnecting the power connector. For the second mission, we are just removing floating plastic debris from the surface. Now we are going to remove a ghost net from the water. We're pulling out a pin to simulate cutting the ghost net free. We return the pin to the surface. Now we are returning the ghost net to the surface. And lastly, we are just removing plastic debris from the bottom of the pool. For the second task, remember we have 4 different missions. So the first one is flying a transect blind over the coral reef, which is just the ROV passing over the coral reef. The second one is propagating the coral reef. So here we are removing a fragment and propagating it to the designated location. This is the coral reef. Now we are going to cull the outbreak of sea stars by injecting something onto it. And now we are collecting a sponge sample for pharmaceutical research. Now for the third task, we have 3 missions. So here we are retrieving a sediment sample. We're taking it to the surface so that the students can analyze the sample and figure out which contaminants they have. So here they're going to look at a spectra and use the peaks to identify the different contaminants. Here we are removing a sample of mussels. And this is going to involve some math. The students are going to have to perform calculations to estimate the number of mussels in the bed, as well as the total amount of water filtered by the mussel bed. And the third mission is the eel restoration. So here we are just removing a trap full of eels, returning it to the surface so that we can take out the eels and then return the trap back to the bottom of the pool. So those are all of our missions. And again, those just a brief overview. There is plenty of more information in the manual, which you all will have access to. And now I will go ahead and hand it over to Jake for the engineering and communication.
Great, thank you, Thais. So engineering and communication, this is a big part of the MATE competition. So as Tylen mentioned earlier, your teams are posing as companies, and we, the regional coordination team, are posing as the client. And so the companies are trying to win the bid for our research purposes. So that's where engineering and communication comes in. And so in real life, in engineering or any business, communication skills are really essential. So part of this competition is developing those skills and testing the students on these skills. It also helps students to understand the design and building process better. If you can't explain it to someone else, you can't teach it to someone else, then you really don't know what you're doing. So by having the teams give these presentations and make the technical document, it's really enhancing their understanding of what's going on. The other thing, if they need to use any logos or pictures from other competitions as part of theirs, there's this marketing kit that's on the official MATE website. So there are 4 components of engineering communication, and on the next slide, we're going to go through them in more detail. But you can see there's rubrics for all of these. So each of these are outlined in the Scout manual. There's a section called engineering and communication that outlines these. And then there's also rubrics that break down, exactly what is required. So I would suggest going by the rubric and making sure that you meet everything. So next slide, please, Thais. Okay, so we're just going to go through these real quickly because they're all in the manual and on the rubric. So the company spec sheet, this is really easy. It's 1 page, and it's just what your company is, what your vehicle is. And if you look at the rubric, it's all just completion. So if you hit all of the marks, if you fill out all of the things, you'll get the full 20 points. So the technical documentation, this is 50 points. And just to put that in perspective, the video that Thais showed, all those tasks were about 80 points and then 60 points. So this is a really big component of the competition as well. So just keep that in mind. So this technical documentation, it's a 10-page max that's just explaining what your company is, what your vehicle is, any innovations or special features about it. And you need to have a picture of the completed ROV as part of this document. And another really important thing that you need to start tracking as soon as you get started is the number of student hours put into this project. So that's really important. This will be evaluated by a panel of working professionals with various areas of expertise. So we want to have a business entrepreneur person, we want to have a marine person, we want to have an engineering person, just to get a bunch of different perspectives at this document. Next, there's an engineering presentation. Because of COVID, these will be via Zoom. We haven't decided yet whether we're going to have teams pre-record these and send them in, or if we're going to have them live. So stay tuned on that. So it's just a 5 to 10 minute presentation. Think, like Tyler mentioned, a Shark Tank pitch, and then a Q&A session with a panel of working professionals. So students are going to really have to be ready to answer things. So again, have to know their company really well, know their robot really well, and be able to answer all of these questions. So each team member must have a speaking part in the presentation. So that's really important. And especially if these are on Zoom, it'll make it really easy to make it open to family and friends and instructors and mentors who can be there, but of course not participate in the actual presentation. Last, marketing display. So we're making this optional because we know this is already a lot of work. Usually this will be a poster, one of those trifold science fair type posters. But due to COVID, and we think we might keep this permanently because it's more cost effective. Just kind of design it in PowerPoint or something and export it as a PDF, and that'll suffice. So this is worth 50 points. We're thinking about making this its own separate trophy. So just pulling that out so it won't be required, but then have a different category that's just marketing display, and we'll have, you know, first, second, third place in that, and maybe break it down by grade level as well. It all kind of depends on how many people do this, and also how many teams we end up with, you know, actually registered. So I think that is it. And now I'm going to pass it to, I think, Sharon for competition rules.
Yeah, so thank you for going through that. So do keep in mind, like as we go through this, all of this has been pulled straight from the manual. So we're really just highlighting everything. So I'm going to talk about general competition rules. Thais, will you swap? Okay, thanks. So some things you need to know: all safety regulations have to be followed, and this will relate back to the competition manual and also the venue. We will be competing at a pool. So we need to keep in mind that, you know, you shouldn't be running around. Keep your teams, your students in check, you know, make sure they're not being disrespectful to anybody. And do respect the judges, officials, the pool staff, audience, and everyone there. And no sabotaging, destroying equipment, doing any of that stuff. And then making sure that all work done on the vehicle, the ROV, it has to be conducted by the company members, which is the students. We want to make sure that the adults or the non-students, like the mentors and parents involved, are limiting their input. So we want to make sure that they're staying in that inspirational role, like let them be the cheerleader. And we want them to just teach and advise the students about design, electronics, and construction, and giving them the knowledge that they need to apply to building their ROV. The competition manual also talks about store-bought components, which can be used. And it really just means, like, as long as the components follow the design and building as well as safety specifications for the Scout class, like, it's okay. But does prefer when students make things themselves. So they become innovative and they put forth their creativity and find other ways to make something that they could have just bought from a store, you know. And then also, you know, students can provide a reasonable, logical explanation for buying versus building. So why did you buy this? Was it cheaper than making something yourself? So they really just want to see the reasoning and process behind everything that they put towards competition. We swap the new slide. Thanks. All right, so scoring. There's a lot of points involved. I think the manual said something about like 400 points total. And keep in mind, like, marketing display, that is optional, so a little less than that. Points are awarded based on students' abilities to explain and justify their decisions. It's not just about building a remotely operated vehicle. It's about being able to explain it and justifying why they need it. and why they made it the way they did. Is it more aerodynamic? Is it cheaper to make it smaller? What about the material? Is it heavy? Like, how much does that cost? So it's the little things that tie into the final product. And then judges are typically working professionals with various backgrounds. We did talk about that. And we do this because of the scoring. We want it to be like well-rounded. So we will have judges from are just from all over the place. As for procedure with the competition, so there's a lot in the manual. I just pulled out some main points. So teams must compete within their assigned time slot. So on competition day, you will be assigned a certain time that you have to be at the pool. This keeps everything organized and moving smoothly. If there's a time conflict, I think you're supposed to give us like a few weeks to change things around. Companies must complete inspection before each product demonstration run. So I think we talk about inspection later on in safety, but every time you are about to put the ROV in the water, it has to be inspected. There's no limit to the number of students who can compete as part of a company. And this is really important because we have a lot of schools signed up. And so when I talk about kit distribution, this will be very important because we may have to, you as a school may make the decision to consolidate some of your teams. And so just know that there's no limit to how big your company can be. Yeah, so companies, they also get up to 2 attempts to complete each product demonstration. And when it comes to the product demonstration, this is a part I don't favor about having a large company, is because you can only have 4 students on your demonstration team, which not every member will get to participate in. But if we as a regional decide to do 2 product demonstration attempts, you can swap around students, so everyone does get to be at the pool. So keep that in mind. We're working on things as well on our end, so we can have fun and a successful competition. So if you want, next slide. I think that's it. And then I'm gonna give it over to James to talk about safety, which is super important.
Thank you. All right, so Thais, you can go to the next slide, please. So the safety component of this is for 2 reasons. Yes, we're going to be dealing with a lot of mechanical aspects of this and water and electricity. So obviously for the students and your own safety, and then also for fairness with the competition, as Sharon touched on a little earlier. So as was just mentioned, the ROV systems must go through safety inspections. We're going to have 1 initial, so before the competition day. And then before each of the tasks that you guys will be completed, you're going to have to go through a separate inspection, which we'll touch on a little earlier. And then if any of the team's ROVs don't pass the safety inspection, they won't be allowed to compete. So it's really important that we make sure it's all working together, or else you guys could put all of this work into it, and then your attempt wouldn't even count toward your score. So another component of the safety is going to be the SID, the system interconnection diagram, which is pictured to the right. And it's an electrical diagram of the wiring, including the control box, motors, and any other systems that are in the vehicle. And then they should, SID should separate and show what systems are on the surface and what systems are on the vehicle. So it's just like a little diagram that you guys will also have to submit along with your guys' safety diagrams. Like I said earlier, just to not only show the learning aspect, because while this is all really fun for the students, the whole building and competition part, we do want the learning to come out of it as well. So those will be needed to be submitted also. So this is just a quick rundown of the initial safety inspection sheet. This can be found on page 30 of the manual. It just goes through the different components. You guys can review it yourselves, go over it with your teams and your students. You're going to want to make sure you guys have all of these points checked off before competition day, obviously, but also while you guys are building it, to making sure it's all going through all the steps that need to be taken. The next slide. So this is going to be a brief list of certain physical and electrical safety components that'll need to be taken into consideration. But like they said earlier, a full list is in the manual and more details if needed. This is just to give you guys kind of a overview of it. So physical safety aspects are all items need to be attached to your ROV and secure, and they won't fall off once you put it into the water or while they're completing any of the tasks. No sharp edges or elements can be on there that could cause injury or personal damage to the pool surface. Hazardous items are identified and protection provided around them. And then all propellers must be surrounded or completely enclosed inside the frame or ROV. Another aspect of this, we're also going to have someone in the pool too. So we obviously want to make sure all the physical parts are safe for them, but also the electrical, because we all know electricity and water don't always mix. So everything in the ROV must be waterproofed. Problems with the Anderson power poles have developed when teams do not use the proper crimper for these connectors. So you'll see more of that in the manual, as well as probably later in the workshops when we go over that. And then no exposed copper bare wires and no exposed motors. And then surface controls, all wiring and devices must be properly secured to the ROV device. But yeah, definitely go look back at the manual, and then like we'll be here to give you guys more direction with this, but it's very important that you guys go over all of these aspects while you're building it, because you don't want to get to competition day and then realize, oh, you have to alter your design or certain parts of it because they don't meet the safety standards. And then if we go to the next slide, these are just a bunch of different links. I guess we can just click through them quick, but the initial data safety inspection sheet is just like what I showed you earlier on the slide, just a different rundown. So you can go through that in more detail on your guys' own time with your teams. And then the on-site safety inspection is what you guys are going to be going through on competition day. And you can see they have inspection 1, 2, and 3, depending on which ones you choose. The examples that Thais gave for your different options. So each of those will have to be passed in order for you guys to compete in each of the different sections. And then the last link is a PowerPoint with the video tutorial, I believe somewhere in there, but if not, we'll include it. And it just goes through, basically specifies on more of the safety concepts that I briefly did in these few slides, and gives you more direction on how you guys can go about building it safely, and then the details of what's going to happen as we go throughout the competition. So now I'm going to hand it back over to Shannon.
Thank you. Okay, so we are done highlighting the competition manual. So we're going to move on to some more juicy details. Next up, we have teacher milestones. So this is something our regional team decided to do. Not every MATE regional will do this, but because we're on such a short schedule, with competition being towards the end of May, possibly early June, we want to make sure that you will be competition ready. So we created some teacher milestones. Next slide. Okay, so the idea of these milestones is to be competition ready. So they're deadlines to keep the companies and the schools on track for the competition. So there'll be weekly and bi-weekly benchmarks, and they'll prepare the schools for any upcoming workshops that we have. So if we have a workshop about soldering, we'll kind of give you a rundown of what you need to know, maybe some vocabulary words that your teams should know, and then y'all will be ready for the workshop. So how to stay connected with the milestones. Our ambassador, Elsie, she's working on the website this weekend, so it should be up and running on Monday. I'm probably going to upload the teacher milestones to the website, and I'll update them as we go on. And then we can also email updates to all the teams as well. So next. And this is an example of a teacher milestone. And these are two that we think are ready to go as well. So March 30th, that's being the end of the month. This is everything we want you and your team or your company to get done. So we want you to register with us. And if you filled out the interest form, you have. We want your company to be created. So have your team ready to go, basically. We also want you to look over the MATE manual. We decided to talk about the competition manual today just because we want to spark interest in it, and we want to make sure that you do understand some of the things that are in there, and we don't want you to skip out on reading it. So once the company is created, we want them to read through the MATE manual. We want you to become familiar with MATE Educate if you haven't already. I've added the link at the bottom of this slide. There are learning modules in there, and we are actually going to follow them and break them down so you will be competition ready. So we want you to understand the vehicle design and building specifications. We want to make sure that, like James said, you don't get to competition and realize you can't pass inspection. We want the company to understand the mission, task, and competition rules. If you understand them, you have a better idea of how to solve them. And then we want you to create a plan to solve the missions. And this comes down to your frame design and how you're going to attack the missions. Is there a certain order? And the manual will tell you if there is. And then by March 30th, we are hoping that you can acquire a pufferfish kit, which will be supplied by the hub. So I will talk about that under kit distribution, but we are working very hard to get everyone their kit as soon as possible. And then there's a textbook that we have, and they have like chapters that relate to each module with the MATE Educate. And so we're going to be sending those out probably by PDF or some way that everyone can get a hold of the correct reading chapters, because we only have 2 textbooks. So those will be really useful to the companies or in the students. And then by April 2nd, which is a Friday, we want students to be introduced to remotely operated vehicles. We want them to know the different parts, the frame, the power, the control, tether, propulsion. We want them to know about buoyancy and the mission tools. And again, I've added the link to the bottom of this slide. Under MATE Educate, they do have the learning modules, and it relates back to the full pufferfish instructions. So having those two hand in hand, you will be able to build your ROV just fine. And then by April 2nd, we also expect them to complete the tools and systems module, which is in the MATE Educate. It tells you how much time you will need and what chapter is associated with it, which is chapter 4. And then we also want them to begin the frame design. This does not mean that they have to start building. So if you don't have a kit by April 2nd, you should, but if you don't, you can still work on the frame design. You can have them draw it or use a 3D program, anything to get them going. So when they do get the kit and the materials they need, they can start going. So that's the idea with teacher milestones. We will be updating them as the weeks come by, and hopefully they will keep you on track. Oh, was there not a kit just, okay, thank you. So kit distribution, I'm sure y'all are all wondering when you get your hands on everything. So we are going to begin distributing our kits on Monday, March 22nd. So that is this Monday. And this is what you get. So the kits are going to come with the pufferfish control system, the tethering system, motor system. You'll get a practice circuit boards, which you'll get 1 per student. I think that's the idea, 1 per student. And then hydraulics pack, which is additional, oh wait, no. The simple circuits pack is additional pieces that you may need in case you mess up on the circuits. And then you'll get some pool noodles, zip ties, a tool bag, and the frame material, which we will be giving PVC. If you do not want the PVC, let us know. When you make your frame design, you don't have to use PVC. It's most popular because of how cheap it is. And a lot of the connectors that come with the control system and tethering system are already PVC. But you can build your ROV out of other materials. And then, okay, so what's not included with the kit? The soldering iron and heat gun, we're not giving those away, but we do have our lending library and we can set up a system. So if you don't have those things, you can rent them out from us when you need it. The heat gun's going to be needed for the waterproofing, which is mainly the tethering system. And then the soldering iron will be needed for the circuit boards, making sure all your connections are good to go. And then we also, someone talked about it earlier, the camera and monitor system. We have a few of them, and we're not sure if we're going to distribute those out or not, because with competition so close, we don't want to overwhelm everyone. But so we may or may not do that because we don't have enough right now. So that's still up in the air. But with the textbook, we are going to be sending the needed chapters for each module and making sure that the students have the conceptual knowledge. Also, I want to talk about how we don't have enough kits right now. So we must have been doing a good job or something, because we have 15 schools registered to compete. That is a lot of schools, and we currently have less than that with the kits, but we are ordering more. So when I say kit distribution begins Monday, what we've decided as a regional is to go ahead and distribute those as in order of who signed up with us. So the first 10 or so teams or schools that registered with us, you'll get one kit. And as our new inventory comes in, we'll be distributing those. And that kind of goes back to our milestones and the way those are set up. You don't necessarily need a kit for those. And so if we focus on learning the details, like the competition manual, and making sure we understand the concepts and the vocabulary and the different parts of the ROV, once we get the kit, we can start building. So that's the idea we have right now. And then if y'all have any questions, feel free to ask. That pretty much covers up everything that I have. So you can go to the next slide. So I will open it up for discussion. If y'all have any questions or concerns, please let us know, because we want to have a good competition.
I am a middle school student, teacher actually, K through 8, and I registered a team. So are you going to compete in that competition against high schools, or how is it going to be?
Right, and that's a good question. So because we have so many schools, we're actually able to separate into different categories. So we are planning to have high school versus high school, and we'll keep all the middle school together and hopefully the elementary. If we don't have a lot of middle school, they may be tied into the high school, but we will let you know.
Okay, so high school and middle school, they will use the same materials, right? Basically.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Everyone will get the same kit. If someone or if a company decides they absolutely don't want to use the PVC for the frame of the ROV, you're allowed to use something else, but we will be distributing PVC.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Oh, and I do want to say with us, okay, so we are only going to be able to supply one kit per school. And so I know there are several schools that wanted more than one team. There's no limit to how big your company can be. So we recommend that you maybe try and consolidate the team to maybe one company. And then if you're, because I'm not sure if we could get you more than one kit. And I don't want anyone to have to buy their own because it gets really expensive. Yes, so that's all I have to say about that. Unless you want to chip in, Jake, on that.
Well, we have to give a shout out to Tennessee Valley Robotics. They're the ones who have purchased and supplied all the kits for us. So they're going to have their logo really big on our volunteer shirts and all of our branding stuff. So shout out to Tennessee Valley Robotics.
Any other questions?
Sharon,
Yes.
what is the process for picking up the kit Monday?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're thinking is we will be, I don't know, I think we can do either two things. We can wait up at the university, have a little drive-through section kind of going, or we can deliver them. We have plenty of ambassadors who are always looking for work. So it's easy for us to give them something to take to a school for drop off. So if you don't have time to swing by the school or meet someone, we can deliver them to you. And we'll
Should
coordinate
we-
each individual
Would you
school.
prefer us to just send you a text or an email and let you know our preference?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And then
And-
I'll put,
And
Jake-
that way we could coordinate a time with you.
yes. And then I'll put my email in the chat. And then Jake, if you want to put yours, or Thais, Tylen, any of you. Any other questions? And yeah, you can always reach out to any of us with questions.
How do you know if you are your school is on the list?
Jake can tell you. What school are you from?
I'm at Dr. William H. Brewster Elementary.
Brewster?
Yes, I see you. You're on there.
Okay, thank you.
Can you check mine too? Memphis School of Excellence, Mendenhall campus. I just want to double check if I registered.
Yes, yes, I see you on here too.
All right, thank you.
And so registration, or the interest form for the MAKE competition closes on Tuesday. So by then our emails will strictly be going to everyone who filled out the interest form. And so it'll be a little bit smaller of a community. It won't be clogging too many people's emails anymore. So, and then we will always check once our website's up and running, hopefully by Monday, check that, because we'll try and update that with the teacher milestones. We'll also email you. I know everyone gets a ton of emails, so keep an eye on our YouTube channel, because all of our workshops are recorded. We'll post them there. We'll also send tons of links and resources onto our Mid-South MAKE page as well. So, and then if you have questions, just ask. We're here.
I just checked. Everyone who's on this call, it has filled out the interest form.
Oh, thanks.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, well, what time is it? It's 4:53, so we're well within our time. So I'm really happy about that. I do want to open it up for discussion. I mentioned it earlier, but I don't know if everyone was on when a good time for our workshops and our meetings is. So we've had a couple schools say that 5:30 would be better. Does anyone else have input? No.
I'm not sure. Maybe it can stay in the same time. It can be.
Okay, but is Friday?
What days are the workshops you going to be on?
So our meetings right now are all on Friday, typically 4 to 5.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's good. So later on Friday.
Would Thursdays be better for you all instead of Friday? Because I know we've talked about possibly having workshops on Thursday so that you're a little bit less into the weekend mindset.
Yes, Thursday would be way better, but yes.
What about for the rest of you all?
So I see Thursday at 4. I'm writing this down. So
For me, personally, I have another robotics team for first. We are meeting on Thursdays.
okay.
What time are you meeting on Thursdays?
Around 3:15 to 4:30.
What about Thursday at like 5? Is that too late?
I think that can work for me.
So we've got Thursdays at 5. And then Fridays, either 4 or 5:30 would be okay. I mean, we've got quite a few teachers on right now, and this one was 4 to 5. So good. Okay. Well, maybe we'll send out a
Survey, maybe a survey to participants' teams.
yeah, and maybe we'll see what time works best for everyone, and then we'll just go with the majority vote. Because everything is recorded. So I do want everyone to benefit from these, and being able to attend will be super helpful, I hope.
Yeah, Sharon, I can make a doodle and then send it out to all the teachers who filled out the registration form.
Okay.
And we can do that.
Yeah, let's do that. And we'll send it out on Tuesday. So
Yeah.
Our next teacher milestone, I think, was the March 30th. So our next workshop will probably be April 2nd. And so that hits both those milestones because we want to make sure you get your kits out. And that's kind of our priority right now. We have to get everything together and make sure you'll have everything you need. Also, that way you can talk to your students and make sure you can find a team and company created and stuff like that. So yes, that's all I have. If y'all have questions, I'm here.
Thank you very much for everything.
Absolutely.
I wasn't really clear about the pickup and for the kids. Do we need to come to the university, or are you going to deliver, or what did you all prefer? Because I wasn't really clear on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are going to coordinate with each school individually when we have a kit for that school. And then it will be up to you. If you want us to deliver the kit, we can. If you want to come pick it up, you can.
Okay. So do we email you telling our preference?
Yeah, you can. We have to order more kits because we have a lot more schools interested than we originally thought. So we're going to first contact, we're going to go in order of who filled out the interest form and work our way down the list until everyone has a kit. So we'll be reaching out to those first schools, and then once our new kits come in, we'll keep going down the list and reaching out.
You did get an interest form from Springdale, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for the information. I'm excited.
You're welcome. And thank you everyone for joining us. I think we're going to call it here. I don't see any more questions. Always email us if you do have a question or any kind of concern. We are in this together now. So we just want to have a fun and exciting experience with you. So that's all I have, and thank you.